Salaam Radio. Salaam Radio. 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. You are listening to Let's Talk live on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. Online at probably said that too many W's there, salaamradio.co.uk, and live on Facebook, Twitch and YouTube. I'm Akil, joined in the studio by my good friend Ishfaq, and tonight we are dealing with two major topics. First, Labour's political troubles and the rise of Andy Burnham. Is this the start of a genuine reset for the country, or are we simply watching Westminster change the face at the top while the public are still waiting for delivery? Then after the break, we turn to Kashmir, a region too often reduced to slogans, maps and political point scoring, while ordinary people live with the consequences of conflict, security crackdowns, human rights concerns and political uncertainty. Tonight, we're going to be factual, fair and probably hard-hitting. We're not here to cheerlead any party, any government or any side. We're here to ask the questions that matter. So you can call us on 01733 602 133, text the show on 07411 191062, or you can comment on the live streams. Keep your views respectful, keep them factual, and let's have a proper conversation. So Ishfaq, before we start, just cards on the table, some transparency. What's your role with People City Council?
So I'm a city councillor representing the Dogsalt ward as a independent.
Thank you. Just needed to get that out there for Ofcom compliance, my friend. So let's begin with Labour. Less than 2 years ago, Labour came into power with a huge parliamentary majority. On paper, it looked like a historic victory. But here's the hard question. If a party wins a landslide in seats, but at only around a third of the national vote, does it really have a deep public mandate or just a massive advantage from the electoral system? That question matters because governing is different from campaigning. A party can win not by being the other side, but once in power, people judge you on delivery. So cost of living, NHS waiting lists, housing, immigration, public services, local government, crime, defence, trust, and the list goes on. But the public mood is not patient anymore. People are not asking for poetic speeches. They're asking, is my life getting any better? Is my family safer? Is my town improving? Does anyone in Westminster actually understand what normal people are going through? So Ishfaq, let me bring you in. The question, Labour came in with a huge majority. Why does it now feel like the political ground underneath them has shifted so quickly?
Well, looking back at it was a big majority, and at the time there was, a call for a need for change, there was a lot of promises made by Labour and Sir Keir Starmer at the time. People were talking, there was a lot of talk about the NHS, about migration, illegal migration, about the state of our roads, fly tips locally.
The economy.
The economy was another big factor, and none of that, I feel, has been delivered. So people were hoping that even if some of those things were delivered upon, or promises or pledges, but there's so many U-turns, and then added to that was all the negative impact, as in again U-turns on it, but the pensioners, the winter fuel allowance, the farmers.
I mean, we can go on quickly. It's something like, I think it was like 15 or more U-turns that they've done,
which did affect voters. It affected the public. It affected public opinion and confidence. So yes, they've then seen that decline in local councils, the amount of seats they've lost. So knock-on effects of that. They've lost safe seats. They've lost by-elections. So all of that encompasses on lack of delivery.
Yeah, definitely.
And lack of confidence.
Absolutely. So what we're saying there, essentially there, is that its credibility is there. So Labour told the country that it was ready for government, but the criticism now is that it may have been ready to win, but not ready to govern. Big difference. In fact, it's a brutal difference. Winning is messaging, governing is delivery, winning is slogan, governing is choices, winning is pointing at failure, government is taking responsibility when the failure becomes yours. So if you campaign as the adults in the room, the public will not forgive you for looking surprised by the state of the room once you enter it, right? So, I guess one of the questions that comes to mind is that has Labour struggled because the problems are too big, or because it just failed to plan to scale?
I think they were keen to get into government regardless it almost feels like to get into government at any cost. And they saw that there was a shift away from the Conservatives because of the growth of reform, and secondly, they believed this was their time, and the only time that they would have the opportunity, because Conservatives at the time were on the decline. Because obviously it was a difficult 14 years, or the last, especially after COVID, I would say. People wanted, it's as simple as that. Wherever you looked, people were just talking about change. They just wanted something different to happen. And they believed that the second biggest party at the time, being Labour, would be the ones to deliver that.
So then with that in mind then, so would we say that the Labour government and the associates across the country, do you think that they underestimated how quickly the public patience would run out? I think so. I can tell you, I remember when Labour came into power, it wasn't even 6 months, I don't think, and you know what, the wolves were at the doors. I mean, I was like, they've only just inherited some of the major issues that were happening in the country at the time, and it was only 6 months. It was less than that, probably 3 months. And I felt like some of the people I was speaking to, they just had no patience. And do you think Labour itself also underestimated that?
I don't think they underestimated it. You can't go into government not knowing what you're putting yourself into. So you have to have a plan, like we're going to talk about, the proposed Andy Burnham coming in. He's got to have a plan of what he wants to do and what roadmap he has for the country. And it's a roadmap that people believed in at the time. But the thing is, straight away after that, you started attacking. I think the problem was that they damaged their core voters, the people that they depended on. They damaged they affected the pensioners and the farmers being the most obvious ones at the time. So it was seen negatively, social allowances and stuff like that. Although they've tried to maintain it, it is going up. Employment is rising, so those problems they were there promising to fix have only got worse.
Okay. We've already had a question. So Katie's just messaged, this is for you, she says, in fact, as a councillor, she says, are voters now less loyal to parties and more willing to punish failure quickly?
I think so. I think, the way we've become in the world now with social media and all that, and there has been a rise in independent councillors across the country and even some independent MPs. So whereas before people were probably inherently, stuck to parties, our elders probably understood the values of those parties and what they stood for, what the policies were. And, I still have conservative values, my conservative values remain, people have socialist values. So people are less interested in those, I would say, but more so in the people that propose those values and how they will affect them in their daily life. So regardless of what part you are, if people see that you're doing the work and you're going to support them in their daily life or make a difference, I think they will support that person.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for the question there, Katie. You can also contact the show, 07411191062, or comment on the live stream. We'd love to hear your views. Is this really Labour's crisis, or are we just seeing a wider crisis in British politics? And the reason why I bring this up to you is because, look, we've just recently had those local elections and we've seen a massive surge for reform and other parties. We've seen so many councils change hands. Are we seeing a wider crisis, i.e., is the two-party system now definitely gone?
I don't know if it's... the other parties are growing, like Reform are growing, but like UKIP and Brexit Party and whatever, I think it's a phase, personally. So I think that two-party system will remain or will start coming back when people start adhering to those values again, because that is what's run this country so long. The only thing I would say that's changed is that whereas in the past, say pre-millennium, we used to have prime ministers that used to be there for the full term, say, or multiple terms. In the last 10 years, we've had more, probably...
I think it's 7. It's going to be 7.
Well, there you go.
It's
so
staggering.
We've had a lot of change right at the top. And a lot of that comes from, the influence we get from social media, from news and from public. So it's not as as safe as it was on the top, should I say. You know, you're very easily undone if you're not careful.
Most definitely. Okay.
And, with Sir Keir Starmer, the Mandels and
I think that
stuff
was definitely
help.
That was huge.
You know,
I mean, that was huge. I mean, it was way bigger than the sunglasses and the suits that he was given by one of his colleagues. I think it was Lord Armid or something. I can't remember the fella's name. Please correct me. Text show on 0741110191062 actually. Because we've also got Nigel Farage, who's been gifted £5 million from a crypto billionaire, and recently he's also declared in his registered interest that he I think got paid like £276,000 or something for some work he's done for a gold bullion company. It was over £22,000 an hour if I'm right. Please do let me know.
The one thing I would say on that, and I've always said this in the past, is any politician in this country should always be loyal to this country and not be taking money from foreign countries or be lobbied by foreign countries for their interest before the interests of this country. Yeah. I don't care what party it is. That's I don't care who they align with.
Yeah.
But you should always be putting the needs and the values of this country before anybody else.
Totally agree with you there. Okay, look, to be fair, Labour did inherit a country with major structural problems. No government can fix NHS, housing, debt, inflation, social care and public services overnight. But the public will still ask, what is the direction of travel? The defence of, and I know you remember this because we used to talk about this quite often, the defence of we inherited this mess worked for a while, but at some point every government owns the mess it's managing. So my question to you is, do you think Labour deserves more time, or has it already broken public trust? Call us on 01733 602 133. Text the show 07411 191062. Right. Now let's turn to Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham is being presented by many as the man who can reconnect Labour with ordinary voters. He has a strong identity outside Westminster because of his time as Mayor of Greater Manchester. He speaks the language of regions, buses, local power, public control and cost of living. But here's the question. Is Andy Burnham a genuine political reset, or is he simply a better communicator for a party facing the same problems? A new leader can change the mood, but a new leader cannot magically change the maths. If the money is not there, if services are stretched, if borrowing is difficult, if taxes are unpopular, and if people want better services without higher bills, then Burnham's biggest challenge is not charisma, it is reality. So Burnham has talked already about Ishvat. He's talked about easing the cost of living pressures. He has raised ideas about greater public control of water, energy and transport. He's spoken about shifting power away from Westminster to the fact that he'll have a number 10 in the north. He wants to be seen as someone closer to the community and regions. But every promise creates a follow-up question, doesn't it? Like, how much will it cost? Who's going to pay? How quickly will it happen? How quickly will bills fall? Will public control automatically mean better service? Can he keep markets calm while sounding radical? Can he satisfy Labour's members, trade unions, MPs and wider public at the same time? So my question to Ishaq is, why does Andy Burnham appeal to people who feel ignored by Westminster?
Why does Andy Burnham
appeal to people who feel ignored by Westminster?
I think what they're trying to do with Andy Burnham is this idea of moving, having a number 10 in the north, or moving some of the power to the north, is they want to reconnect with their basically their vote bank up, in the north, where it's Manchester, the Yorkshire area, hardcore red seats, or the red wall, you could even say. They're trying to bring them back, I think, and that's what Andy Burnham's probably been set to do, with the idea of, let's build the red wall back up by showing them, bringing some more power up there. But then there's people in the south who may not like that idea. I don't like that idea.
So you don't like the idea of a number 10 in the north?
No, I don't.
You don't like the idea of him being PM in Manchester and coming to London when he needs to, but really having his main office in the north? You don't think that there's too much power in the south?
I don't think that he should be doing that. I think it should stay traditional as it was, for the simple reason that if he is the PM, and most likely he will be, people should come to see him in London, not having to go to see him in Manchester or wherever it may be.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, let's say he's got a world leader. I mean, I'm sure he won't meet them in Manchester. He'll meet them in London. So are we saying that his strength really sounds like anyway that he sounds less like a London politician?
I think he is a very liked mayor. Mm-hmm. I think he's done a good job as a mayor. There's many people that
amazing achievements.
You know, he has done a good job as a mayor, and I know many people that do like him. You know, but is that the same as running the country?
Okay,
and
so,
some of those successes, were from the previous mayor. I thought it was all down to him, but apparently the previous mayors in Manchester were very good, who helped with the development and, you know, increasing the development in the city.
So you don't think then regional experience easily translates into running the whole country?
I like the idea of more power within regions.
Okay. I mean, he spoke about that quite a bit,
yeah,
didn't he?
and I think he's going to push that more, which I think a lot of the mayors are more excited about, possibly because it gives them a bit more control. And I think if we have more regional control, it's better. It's a bit like the United States having the smaller states where, you know, they look after themselves and look after their own economy in a way, but then they answer back to the United States. So it's that kind of model I see it as, which isn't a bad idea. And I think he's there more to push that. So that might give him the opportunity to link with the voters, but at the same time, the Labour policies, well, the sort of stuff that he's coming out of at the moment, he's not come out. They're waiting for him to come out with what he wants to do. There's no clear agenda or roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to come. I do think that's going to come. So, I mean, he's not in power just yet, so we've got to give him some slack. But I would say he's also going to be following, certainly at the moment anyway, the Rachel Reeves' economic policies for the time being. It remains to be seen who's going to be taking her place.
Well, I'll give you this idea that I'm nearly 50. So in my lifetime...
You don't look it.
Thank you.
You look 49.
So in my lifetime, I would say that the only governments we've obviously seen are Labour or Conservative.
That's right.
Right? And in my head, the way I see things, it's that the Conservatives come in, they keep things tight, save money, and
deprive services.
Well, it's not about depriving, it's about making sure that you use the money wisely. That's what this is, again, only my opinion.
They cut the defence budget so much. Okay, we could go into that another time, but go ahead.
And then Labour will come in, and it's more about it's more expense on social, social services and all that stuff, and spend whatever you can when you can. Until the coffers are empty. That's my sort of...
Interesting. What do you think? Let me know.
I might be wrong, but that's my perception in 50 years.
Wow. But you do realise in the 50 years that you're given your experience that we've actually had more Tory governments than we've had Labour governments.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a question in here from Jim. Jim says, is Labour looking for a leader or a political lifeboat? And I think you've answered that earlier, haven't you? It's the lifeboat, isn't it?
I think it's the lifeboat. I think it's the life jacket.
It's the life jacket.
It's the life jacket.
I think, Jim, thanks for the question. I think they're actually looking for a leader. I think they haven't had the right man, certainly public-facing right man in the role. So I think Andy Burnham, with his ability to connect to people, I think that's going to do them some good. He's going to be judged very, very quickly because there literally is no patience in the world. When you can't blame people, there is a huge cost of living crisis. NHS, I mean, they've brought down the waiting list significantly, but more, we've got the migrant crisis, we've got a defence crisis, the economy, we've got issues there. So he's going to have a massive inbox, and he's going to probably have to fall out with some of his backbenchers pretty soon, don't you think? Because he's going to have to make some radical decisions.
Definitely. I mean, look, the biggest question affecting everyone at the moment is on migration, illegal migration. Do I see Andy Burnham fixing that in a hurry? No. Do I see them fixing it in any way, shape or form?
Okay, let me put you to that. Do you not think Shabana Mahmood's doing a good job? She's closed a lot of hotels already. They've sent, from my recollection, I think Labour's sent back over 70,000 people already. Do you not think that I'm not saying that this, obviously there's more work to be done, but do you not think they've made a dent?
I don't think there's enough still being done.
You don't think there's enough that's been done?
No.
Okay, we're going to pick this up in another show in the future, but I actually do think Shabana Mahmood's doing a good job. I think it's a tough job. Anyone that comes into that role is going to be scrutinised heavily, but some of the policies are very, very strict, and some may say they're quite harsh, but if you look at it from a perspective of, we need to do something about the fact that this country has a lot of illegal migration, and we need to be able to send people back in a safe manner. But then more than that, we also have situations where the system in its current and I know she's trying to change it, but the system that they inherited from the Tories.
No, they didn't inherit it. They broke that system because had we still had, they carried on with the Rwanda.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. So what I'll tell you is,
like the Rwanda project.
You liked it, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting. So you gave her a lot of money, right, with nothing back in return. And 1, 2, they gave up. They let people carry on coming in until this thing was being baked. You know that, right?
While it was being done and processed and getting ready, and all the legal stuff was being
all this money that was being spent on hotels,
again, which I never agreed with anyway. I know I don't have to agree with every single thing that was done, but I think the Rwanda policy as a deterrent was a good idea.
I agree with you, a deterrent. But that being said, we're going to definitely pick this up on another show. I enjoyed the little bit of passion that was coming out from you this then, actually. Okay, look, supporters will say Burnham understands everyday pressures better than many Westminster politicians. Critics will say the country needs more than warm words and local pride. The public do not pay their energy bill with political vibes. They need policy that works. So the question is about democracy, coronation or contest. There is also an issue that I found quite uncomfortable, which is that there's been no contest. If Burnham becomes leader without a serious contest, some will say that provides stability. Others will say the country needs a prime minister quickly and Labour needs to move on. But others would ask, like me, how can a party speak about democracy and renewal if its own members feel like spectators? If the next prime minister enters Downing Street through a process that feels stitched up, the first question would not be about policy, it's about legitimacy. And I'll tell you something, when I was researching this show to do with you this evening, and I spoke to a lot of people, just getting some general opinions about the whole Andy Burnham situation, and I can tell you, a lot of people were saying, how is this legitimate? Why is there not at least one person from the Labour Party going up against him so we can hear his policies, understand who he is, before he gets the keys to number 10? So there is this, I don't want to use the word fear, but there's a concern most definitely out there that, he's just been parachuted in.
Well, there'll be agendas of MPs who want to show their support because he is massively the favourite within the party. So they don't want to lose face with him, I guess, and maybe they're hoping for cabinet roles or whatever, so they'd rather not go up against him to lose and just...
I definitely feel that about Wes Streeting. Because I thought he was going to be a front runner. As soon as he resigned, okay, he's going to go for the PM role, and then as soon as Burnham, becomes an MP, and they have some sort of conversation, and he's like, "No, well, I support him." So, the general feeling there is he's going to get one of the very top jobs. But then I guess that it goes back to is this about us getting a proper choice, or Labour members getting a proper choice, or is speed more important, Ishfaq? Or I'll put to you, does the country need a general election?
No, because I think every term should be carried out to its full.
Okay.
Regardless of which party it is. That's the whole. We live in a democracy at the moment, so it shouldn't be about coups, and that causes more fractions within the country. It causes more less confidence. So no, every term should be completed, regardless.
Okay, I agree with you, unless it's gone catastrophically bad.
Unless it's really bad.
I've just got a message coming from YouTube from Joel. Joel says, how much is the British media to blame for the churn of PMs? Do they report on the negative too much to deliberately create themselves versus narrative for clicks and sales?
Yes. Simple as.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I would say negative news coverage is certainly it's a huge business now, isn't it?
It sells more.
Without a shadow of a doubt, no doubt. So, I guess this is not about saying the process is illegal.
Just going back, sorry, just to give you, and again, not to support anybody or any party or anything like that, but it's happened over and over again. We were talking about the churn of leaders. Boris was, basically kicked out because of the COVID issues and the party and having a sherry or stuff like that, which was down to social media and the media. Maybe 20, 30 years before that, even if he had, that never would have happened.
It wouldn't have come out. Yeah,
it wouldn't have happened. If it was Thatcher, it never would have happened.
Yeah.
So it's just different times and different ways of dealing with stuff.
I agree with you. I'm just smiling. So this isn't, this is not about saying the process is illegal. It is not. We've seen prime ministers change mid-parliament before. The question, I guess, is about political legitimacy. A parliament majority gives you the legal right to govern. It does not automatically give you public trust. I think that's what it comes down to. Would you accept Andy Burnham becoming prime minister without a general election? Let us know. 01733602133. Text the show on 07411 1911062. A comment in the live stream, just as Joel has there before. Thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Unbelievably, Ishfaq, we are heading towards a break already. What we will say is that time will tell. The public want change. Starmer promised competence. Now Burnham is being positioned as the reset. But the question for the voters is simple. Will this actually change my life or just change the person standing outside number 10? And we'll find out soon enough, won't we, once he's in post, if he's not challenged beforehand. We're heading to the break now, so do stay tuned to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. After the break, we move to Kashmir.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
Every successful business starts with a single step, the courage to begin. At the Progressive Business Network, we believe your idea could change your life. Each month, we bring dreamers and doers together to inspire, to share, and to spark action. Your time is now. Join the Progressive Business Network. Visit progressivebusinessnetwork.co.uk today. Progressive Business Network, where ambition meets opportunity.
It's healthy, nutritional and halal. It's The Lads, your first choice for burgers, pittas, wraps and flame-grilled lamb chops and peri-peri chicken. Now with 5 fantastic new flavours, plus sides, grilled salads and milkshakes too. Open daily from 11:30 until 11 p.m. Call in at 15 Cowgate in Peterborough. Order for collection online at thelads.co.uk or by calling Peterborough 562287 or place your Lads delivery order at ubereats.co.uk.
Ayada Care Limited provide quality and compassionate care at home support services, respecting the cultural, linguistic and religious backgrounds of those we care for. We find out exactly what our clients need, then match our trained Ayada staff to meet their personalised yet affordable care plans, promoting independence and mental health well-being. Call 01733 666 801 to speak with registered manager Iqbal Manji or visit ayadacare.co.uk for details.
Turkish Restaurant Peterborough. The name says it all. It's the restaurant in Peterborough that serves amazingly mouth-watering halal Turkish cuisine, including delicious kaneva and baklava desserts. At 1253 Borges Boulevard, Turkish Restaurant Peterborough's the place to dine with family and friends or order for collection to enjoy at home. Call 01733 307076 or view online at turkishrestaurantpeterborough.com.
What do children at Bright Bambini Montessori Nursery say about us?
I love my teachers and friends.
At Bright Bambini Montessori, we sprinkle confidence, independence, and stir the love of learning. From 18 months to 5 years, free funded places available.
Come join in the fun.
Call Bright Bambini Montessori on Peterborough 306565 or visit bbmc.uk.
Peterborough's community radio station, Salaam Radio, 106.2 FM.
But not.
Welcome back to Let's Talk with me, Akil, and Ishfaq, live on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. Before the break, we discussed Labour's troubles and Andy Burnham's possible rise. Now we turn to Kashmir. This is a deeply sensitive topic. People listening may have family links, personal pain, strong views, and lived experience. So let me be clear from the start. We'll be fair, factual, promote no hatred, no excuse for violence, will not dehumanize anyone, but neutrality does not mean avoiding hard truths. Kashmir has been discussed by governments for decades, but too often the people of Kashmir are treated as an argument to be won rather than human beings to be heard. Kashmir has been disputed since the partition of British India in 1947. India and Pakistan both claim the region. The territory is divided by the line of control, with India administering one part and Pakistan administering another. China also controls part of a wider region. This is not a simple conflict. It is territorial, it is political, it is historical, it is religious for some, it is national identity for others, and for ordinary families, it is daily life. The key danger is that every side has its own pain, and every side has its own version of history. When history becomes a weapon, ordinary people become the casualties. India frames Kashmir through sovereignty, terrorism, and national security. Pakistan frames Kashmir through self-determination and unresolved partition. But many Kashmiris frame it through rights, dignity, identity, representation, and the right to shape their own future. Human rights groups frame it through abuses, restrictions, detentions, free speech, and accountability. Security forces frame it through militancy, cross-border threats, and protecting civilians. All of these frames exist. The job tonight is not to pretend one frame erases the other. The job is to ask, where does this leave the people of Kashmir? So, question for you, Ishfaq. When people in Britain talk about Kashmir, do we sometimes simplify it too much?
I think we do. I think we link it to our own, sort of families or relatives that are there, and we just see it as that. It's either India, Pakistan, and Kashmir's in the middle. Sorry, excuse me.
My Ishfaq's got a bit of a frog in his throat. He'll be back in a second or two. As we do that, I'll go through the other areas of what we're discussing this evening about this topic. In April 2025, 26 people were killed in Pahalgam in India-administered Kashmir. That attack was horrific. Civilians must never be targets. There's no political cause that justifies the murder of innocent people. But after the attacks like this, another question always follows. How does a state respond without punishing an entire population? Then we have a collective punishment as a failure situation. Governments have a responsibility to protect civilians from terrorism. Victims and families deserve justice. Those responsible for attacks must be held accountable through credible evidence and lawful process. But human rights organisations and UN experts have raised concerns about alleged abuses, detentions, restrictions, and crackdowns after the attack. India will say it faces a real deadly security threat. That cannot be dismissed. Human rights voices will say security cannot become a blank check. That also cannot be dismissed. How does a democracy fight terrorism without weakening its own democratic? I can't even talk now since you had your little coughing fit there. I've lost the ability to articulate myself. How does a democracy fight terrorism without weakening its own democratic values? Is a question that many Indians have shared with me during my research for this show this evening. And then we have the other side of it. Are human rights treated as optional when the subject matter is Kashmir? And I would say, given what's happened, yes. Look at what's happened to the people of Kashmir. The actual ordinary people in Kashmir who have no actual influence on the decision making. They have been slaughtered.
We've spoken about this many times before as well, and it carries on, and it will carry on in the sense of, there's been United Nations resolutions passed and ignored for many years, about Kashmir. There's been many human rights violations which have been ignored, and that process just carries on. And as more and more of that happens, the argument is almost weakened or forgotten. People are demoralised by it, or they become immune to it maybe. because it's the same again.
Yeah.
The current issue at the moment is slightly different to what's been happening in the past.
It's true. So you're talking now about the side about the Pakistan administered Kashmir, aren't you? So
Yeah.
this is important because a neutral discussion cannot only criticise one side. So there's been recent protests in Pakistan administered Kashmir. They've centred around political representation, especially reserved legislative seats for refugees from Indian administered Kashmir who live elsewhere in Pakistan. Protesters argue that this gives people outside the territory too much influence over local politics. Authorities banned the protest movement, suspended internet and mobile services, made arrests and faced criticism for human rights organisations. There were deadly clashes. You cannot demand rights for Kashmiris on one side of the line of control while ignoring the rights and concerns of the other. If political rights matter in Indian administered... I can't even talk, can I? If political rights matter in Indian administered Kashmir, they also matter in Pakistan administered Kashmir. So...
They do, but I would say there's two sides to the story.
Yes.
I kind of stayed out of it a little bit because initially I didn't understand too much. What was the issue about these seats? I've never really got involved in Kashmiri politics or Pakistan politics in the sense of understanding or engaging regarding number of seats and what would happen and what the influence is. But people there obviously feel strongly about it because they live in an area where they want to be responsible for what happens in their area and the political framework, obviously, and without the external influence. So if they are truly independent, then they want to feel like they're independent without that external influence. I totally get that.
Yep.
And I don't have an issue with that.
And that makes sense.
And
yep.
if they want to get rid of those seats, in one way I can see why they want to do it, in another way I want to see why Pakistan doesn't want them to do it. And the reasons are because we talked just now about the UN resolutions. Those resolutions are still outstanding about self-determination. So those people that have come over from Jammu and are now, or the Indian side occupied and are living in Pakistan, say, they want them to still have that vote, because if they don't have that vote and India changed the demographic, okay, then what will happen is tomorrow when they turn around and say we want to remain with India, but those people that came from there don't have a vote there anymore, then obviously that's going to skew the whole thing.
Absolutely.
And I can see the long-term reasons why Pakistan doesn't want that to happen, and I can see why the Kashmiris on this side are saying it probably doesn't affect them as much because it's about the ones from the other side. But really, it should all be united and with one. But the way to deal with this isn't through, I think, hardcore demonstrations and fighting or, doing what's happened so far, or even the deaths that have happened, which is, unwarranted, should never have happened. It should always happen with roundtable talks. Sit around the table, discuss it. From what I've seen in media, I empathise with both sides, to be honest with you. I don't agree with people abusing politicians or as in the leadership or the army that's kept them safe or had sacrificed so many lives to keep these people safe, to then swear at those people and swear at those people that have been given their lives. I think that's out of order, and hence why I kind of stepped back from it, because I didn't agree with that at all.
Okay.
And many people in my family didn't. But I'll always be an advocate for people sitting around a table, talking, discussing what the issues are and finding a solution, because there always is a solution or a way around it to keep everyone happy.
Okay, with that in mind then, Saima has messaged the show. She's saying, why do both India and Pakistan speak about Kashmiris but not always listen to Kashmiris?
I don't know if that's true, but I suppose Kashmiris would have that opinion. I can see why they have that opinion. And these seats are a perfect example. But at the same time, Pakistan has listened. I can't speak for the Indian side because I've not seen that. But from the Pakistani side, from what I've seen in the media, is that they wanted cheaper electricity, and they're getting cheaper electricity than Pakistanis, or people from Pakistan. They're getting cheaper flour than what it costs to grow it. Make flour in Pakistan. They're getting it cheaper in Kashmir. So they're getting subsidies, which is what they wanted, because there is a hardship, and Pakistan, I believe, was supporting Kashmiris in that way. So they've listened to them and adhered to those requests. So from what I've seen, again, from politicians on both sides, is that there was requests made and those were listened to and taken on board. But then there was an increase in demands. Out of all of those demands, there was a couple of demands, and the main one being about these 6 seats, which was contentious. Now, Pakistan has apparently said to these people, these politicians or the committee, that look, get involved in the elections, do it in the democratic way, and then you can decide your fate with these seats, what you want to do, because you'll have that political control to make those decisions. But because there's a lack of trust, maybe, or I believe people should have gone through that process to allow it to happen. And when it didn't, or it failed because of the mistrust they have, and that was proven, then they have an argument to say, all right, we're going to the next step now. But when you've not given democracy that opportunity, I think to jump to those steps was wrong as well. And that has cost lives.
Thanks for that. What do you think of what Ishfaq's just said? Call the show on 01733 602 133, or you can text the show on 07411 191062. We would love to hear from you. Look, a people cannot be called central to a cause while being treated as inconvenient when they ask difficult questions. I think you'll agree with me on that, Ishfaq. My concern here at the moment is, has the international community normalised suffering for the Kashmiris?
Yes, by ignoring the plight of Kashmiris for so long.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it goes back to when you were saying about the UN resolution. I can remember from when I was a child.
Yeah.
Right, hearing about UN resolutions and things not passing, things not going over the line, and I think, or like you said, there's that mistrust, and people have put themselves in positions, and I'm not saying it's all that way backwards, but a lot has happened in the last.
People have lost trust in even, I would say, as far as the United Nations Council, because these meetings have happened, these resolutions have passed, but when it comes to equal values, which is what they're supposed to uphold, human life, equality, and all of that stuff, none of that seems to be upheld. Especially when it comes to Kashmir. I could even say the same when it comes to Palestine. Even everyone should be treated equally with the fair. Equal rights and the fair governance.
So would you say then that the world only pays attention to when India and Pakistan come close to war?
Well, yes, because they're both superpowers, with
nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons. So obviously that is a worry. The same way that they're concerned about Iran having nuclear weapons, and Israel has nuclear weapons. All these countries, it's at the moment it's a minefield, so they've got to be careful the way things are playing out. I don't think they're being handled right, especially in Kashmir. People say that Kashmiris should be allowed to determine their own fate. I say that, I agree with that, but it should also happen in a democratic way, and I think too many times we've also been led down the garden path. Now, I've got Kashmiri roots. I've got some of my relatives live in Pakistan, some of them live in Kashmir, but we originate from Kashmir. But say to someone like me that I shouldn't have a say in Kashmir going forward, it feels unfair to me. I've always been a part of Kashmir, regardless, even though I was born here. We're still regarded as Kashmiris or Pakistanis, right? So there's no division. For me, it is all one. Pakistan and Kashmir, for me, has always been one.
Okay. We've got a question here from Javed. Javed says, what role should British MPs play, especially in areas where large Kashmiri communities are in the UK?
I think we undersell ourselves as a community here. I know there was a motion passed by Councillor Amjad on Kashmir locally a couple of days ago.
Can you tell us about that?
It was passed. It was just more about the values that we should uphold, and asking for the MPs and the leader to write to the Foreign Secretary, I think it was, to ask for negotiations to proceed between the two parties.
Okay, and I have also seen as well, there's been some British MPs who've actually stood up in the House of Commons and brought this up as well.
They have. Look, the thing is, I think as a public, we are guilty of this. Until you don't get involved in politics, you don't realise. MPs can say what they want to say. They can, we can appease our voters. I could have stood up in the council and said stuff about Kashmir to appease my voters. Does it make a difference on Kashmir and what's going to happen there? Absolutely not. Does it build awareness like we're doing now on the radio? Yes, it does. So you can build awareness so people understand the situation, and maybe that entails, added pressure on those that are dealing with the situation to get it resolved sooner rather than later, and to make sure that there's no loss of life. But do we have an impact on the change in policy? I don't think we do. Do British MPs have an impact on the change in policy? No, they don't. But should they write and engage with the constituents? Of course they should. Should they be making raising awareness in the House of Parliament? Yes, why not? Because a large majority of their voters are from Kashmir or have those roots. So what affects their family there will obviously have a knock-on effect here. So it's I suppose it's their duty to make that raise that awareness.
Thanks for the question there, Javed. Appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with you, Ishfaq. You've got to pull the levers that you can pull.
Yeah.
And you have people of influence, and the British Foreign Secretary will have a level of influence in Pakistan. Whether or not that actually results in some sort of meaningful change, like you said, that's another story. But the fact that people are picking up saying, look, you need to get around the table, you need to have this conversation, and so on. Do you feel, this is a tough one for you, do you feel in your lifetime that there will be a independent Kashmir? And I'm talking India and Pakistan, from India and Pakistan. So the whole of Kashmir becomes independent.
I don't know. And I don't know if that would ever happen. There's different views. You could have 10 people in a room that will have different views. There'll be people on the Indian side that will say they want it to be a part of India. There'll be people on the Pakistani side that say that it should be part of Pakistan, and there'll be people in Kashmir that say they want it to be fully independent. But then there'll be people in Kashmir who will say they want it to be a part of Pakistan as well.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So it all differs. But I was going to say.
Okay, let me flip that then. So do you think that can India and Pakistan ever move beyond seeing Kashmir mainly through national pride?
That I hope they can. I hope they don't use it as their battleground, as the toy that's chucked from side to side, with the people in the middle, just like
and so many people, innocent people, just being killed.
Yeah, because while the two countries have this bottleneck that they use and twist how they want. I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that they put the needs of the people first, because regardless of what happens within the world, they are still accountable and answerable to what happens to the Kashmiris, because like you said, one is administered by Pakistan, the other one by India, so in all accounts they should be held to account.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, I agree with you. Got a question coming in here now from Lucy. She says, what should diaspora communities do constructively, having seen so many protests already in the UK?
Constructively, I don't know, in regards to
I'm
what,
assuming so. Probably we mentioned about the MPs. Is there anything else that they could do?
So what I would have seen more constructive would have been for some of our leaders who feel strongly about this to get the Kashmiri diaspora to write a petition and send that to the Pakistani High Commission. That I think would be more proactive to show, and if every city did that, then the Pakistani government would get a hands-on fact of what the the mood in the room is, you could say.
Okay, thanks for the question, Lucy. Appreciate that. You can also text us on 07411 191062 with your thoughts. This is something I've been thinking about as you've been sharing your thoughts about this evening, which is how do we keep this issue alive without spreading anger and misinformation? I'll be honest with you, when I was doing my research about this topic, there was a lot of information out there, and I was like, some of it didn't look right, some looked like AI, some of the data looked incorrect, there was a lot of emotion involved, there was a real lot of anger involved as well. And how can this issue be kept alive while also managing anger, misinformation. Emotions are always going to be there, but anger and misinformation is not going to get us the result.
The only way you're ever going to deal with an issue is in a civilized manner, and that means put the anger to one side, put the upset to one side, which is hard to do when there's a loss of life. But you know, sometimes you've got to put the big boy's pants on and be the adult in the room. And the only way this issue is going to get resolved if both sides sit at the table and decide the best way to resolve it. I think there's been mistakes made on both sides, personally, whether it was in the handling or, you know, long-term planning of what people want. And Pakistan, don't forget, from looking at it from Pakistan's side, they are concerned about external influence, you know, trying to undermine them or their security. So hence why they've probably gone hardball. The people on the other side probably didn't expect that because they didn't maybe feel like they were guilty of any external influence. So there's always that impact of it, and I think that's what's kind of happened here. So whereas that could have all been resolved had they just sat around the table or followed that process. But I think sometimes some are saying that if you give someone an inch, they want a mile. You know, some Pakistanis I've spoken to have said it feels in that way. You know, where some of their demands were listened to or adhered to, and then as soon as that's happened, another list of demands has come out, and then another list of demands has come out. And where does it stop? So it was just, you know, starting to curtail. I think there needs to be dialogue. I think everyone needs to press the reset button and say, how do we go forward from this to manage it in the right way? You know, if there is demands, that genuine demands that the people have, and they're not being listened to, there's always a way in democracy. Do it that way. And if you can't do it that way, then you've got an excuse of why you're starting to strike or, you know, call the public out and call these politicians out. So I think that's what needs to happen. I think that's what Councillor Amjad's motion was saying the other night as well. Yeah,
and the other obviously thing to say as well is the killing needs to stop. Innocent people should not be bearing the brunt of decisions made by people over them. You know, Kashmir does not need more people shouting at each other, do they? They need truth, courage, accountability and willingness to put human life above political pride. And I think you articulate that really, really well, actually. Situation is very tense, and it's like a continuous flashpoint, isn't it?
I've always been, you know, vocal when it comes to Kashmir, as I said, because of the links with family. I've kind of not on purpose stepped back from this because it is, you know, a very strong issue, and people, you know, passions are very high on this issue, and it's very difficult sometimes when you're involved in politics to take a back seat. But when you don't see an answer, when you see people going to the extremes and no one's going to listen, like I said, as a local councillor, what difference am I going to make? The only thing I can do is try and speak and reason my sensibility to the people that are here, who can hopefully then have that knock-on effect. And as a chain reaction, as that builds, maybe people will try and see some common sense and some common goal. Because don't forget, Pakistan and Kashmir have always had common goals. And I think people need to realign that and remember that.
Thanks for that, Ishraq. Well, we're coming to an end to tonight's Let's Talk. I can't believe it, the show has just flown by. Tonight we covered two major issues. On Labour, the question is whether Andy Burnham represents real change or simply a change of face. The public will not judge the next Prime Minister by speeches, slogans or photo opportunities. They will judge him, and I know you know this is true, by bills, wages, services, safety and trust. And because we're currently in a cost of living crisis, he has no headroom in this situation. He really has to hit the ground running, and you know, we'll see. I'm sure me and Ishraq will be discussing more about his first 100 days in post when he's finally there, because we certainly cannot see a Labour candidate right now that's going to go against him, which I think is a shame personally. I think we'd like to have seen a contest, just so we can see some of his ideas get battle tested. And on Kashmir, You know, the question is whether the world can finally move beyond managing the conflict and start addressing the rights, the dignity, and the future of the people who live within its consequences every single day. And we know from the research we've done and family members that we have and people we know, you know, everybody's very concerned about that. So we hope there is a solution that comes, a positive solution that comes soon. Look, politics without delivery becomes theatre, security without rights becomes oppression, and justice without listening to people becomes just another slogan. Thank you to everyone who listened to me and Ishfaq, called, texted and commented on our show today. It's been good to be back. We'll be back, no doubt, very soon, hopefully next week. You've been listening to Let's Talk with Akil and Ishfaq, live on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. You can rewatch previous shows on Salaam Radio's YouTube channel. If you haven't already seen that, please go check that out and subscribe. We've loved, and like, of course, yes. So stay safe, keep the conversation respectful, and good night. Assalamu alaikum.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
2020 World Buffet is inspired by the best foods from around the world. See our teppanyaki chefs grill your food to order, or choose delicious Indian, Italian, Chinese, Mexican dishes and British favourites, all halal. 2020 World Buffet offers